Is this the biggest North London derby in recent memory? Spurs 16th in the Premier League table, Arsenal floundering, flapping at the top of the table. And you could argue that the pressure is all on them going into it. We're going to do a deep dive, a big preview ahead of what is such a massive game on Sunday. I'm with Kish, Lily White Lab, and with Seb as well. Me and Seb have got our own preview podcast drop in today as well, so make sure to go and check that out. We've got Rory on to talk about it from an Arsenal perspective. But this is going to be solely focused on the mighty Tottenham Hotspur and Igor Tudor's Blue and White Army. Kish, how are you feeling, mate? How are you feeling ahead of the game on Sunday?
You know what? I'm just feeling back to life with Spurs.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually finally excited to go.
You were depressed for a while, mate. You were boring for a while.
I was so bored. Like, but this is yeah. I'm just excited to go, and like I'm actually excited to go to the pub before the game and talk about the game and have a bit of hope there. I do think this one is going to be very dictated by the atmosphere. I really think that the atmosphere will play a huge part. Especially like the way that the Arsenal, the moment they're in terms of them looking nervous, kind of giving away stupid goals from quite secure positions. I do think like this is a time where, despite where we are in the table, the mood around both fan bases is almost in reverse. Like Spurs' mood seems to have lifted a lot. I don't know, but obviously we don't know how that is in the player camp. But in terms of fan base, I think the mood is quite high, and the Arsenal fan base, despite being top, is very low at the moment. So I think you play into that and really just don't let them be comfortable. I think that's my main thing. I'm releasing a preview video on it, but it's about like just not letting them dictate the rhythm of the game, and being comfortable is what Arsenal want. They want to be able to control aspects of everything. And I think if Spurs are really intentful and aggressive and intense, that is the way that you're going to disrupt what Arsenal are really.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I think, obviously, you said you've kind of recorded like a tactical preview. We're going to do that in this video, but I think it's also important to talk, like you said, about the kind of feeling of the game. Because one, we haven't kicked a ball yet under Igor Tudor. And although we've got a strong idea of how he might set up with this kind of potential three at the back formation, which is how he obviously operated mostly at Juve. But I think the interesting thing is that if you go to his first game for Lazio, actually kind of going back to 2024 against Juventus, he has also played in a 4, as you can kind of see there. And I mean, Igor Tudor kind of spoke in that first interview that he did with Spurs, that I think we can probably all agree that he spoke quite well, although it's, we've got to a point now where I think we're taking what managers kind of say in their first interviews as with a pinch of salt after what Thomas Frank has said and other managers have kind of said in the past. But I think he sort of did speak and kind of infer that it's about adapting to the situation in his kind of early initial stages. So there's no necessarily guarantee that he's actually going to do this, although we can kind of use this as a potential framework to say how he might set up. But do you kind of echo what Kish has said in terms of the feeling around the fan base? It certainly feels a lot stronger. And also, how do you feel like the players will be feeling going into this game? Because I think they're human beings at the end of the day, and they feel this rivalry. I think we've seen with this Spurs team, or certainly a group of these players, that they do understand what this kind of game means, despite the fact that the results haven't really been there. So it's bound to have had an impact what happened last night with Arsenal and them as well, right?
100%. I personally am buzzing. Like I've genuinely not been this excited for a Spurs game in a long time. Well, probably since Bilbao, since the Europa League final. But that was also mixed with a lot of nerves, of course. But like Kish, I'm so excited to get down there early on Sunday, get down to the pub, actually like chat a bit positively with people. Thomas Frank's gone. That kind of cloud over this group of players and over Spurs is gone now, which I'm just very, very happy about. And it's like a new lease of life kind of. And it's a free hit. I genuinely see this game as a free hit for Spurs. Obviously, we're in a serious situation, the relegation battle, but no one is expecting us to win still. People are hoping that we can do something, but no one's expecting us to win. It's the first game under Igor Tudor. I'm buzzing to be a part of the atmosphere. Obviously, I'm expecting the atmosphere to be top on Sunday. I think everybody wants it to be top and is going to help create that atmosphere. And like Kish said, if that atmosphere is top and we get into them in the first 10-15 minutes of the game, given what's happened to them midweek, we will really see what they're made of in that first 15 to 20 minutes. And I've got a feeling they could crack under that atmosphere. So, and
seen it before, haven't we?
Exactly, and under Igor Tudor, sort of what he's spoken about in terms of the high intensity, how he likes to press teams, how he likes to be aggressive with his philosophy, I think that that could really bode well with the players. And I think he just seems like the kind of guy that can get a group of players going. We don't need to worry about him long term, him tactically, really. He's here for 4 months to do a job. And if he gets these players going for the game on Sunday, I really, really think that we can make something of this game and make it a better game than I have seen Spurs make a North London derby. Probably since 2022, when we beat them in the run into the top 4 race, which was again one of the most amazing days I've had at that stadium. So yeah, it's one of those where I'm just buzzing to get down, and I think the players will really, really feed off that atmosphere, because I think that they have been missing that this season. I think any group of players are going to respond to that atmosphere, hopefully. So yeah, should be a nice concoction.
Agreed. Before we kind of get into the game from a tactical perspective, make sure to go and subscribe to these boys. Obviously, subscribe to this channel. I've launched a new general football YouTube channel where there's videos up now, so make sure to go and check that
Hell
out
of a
as
start
well.
for that channel, eh?
Oh, mate, that Arsenal game just fell into my lap perfectly, didn't it? Really?
Unreal.
And I feel like I do want to kind of go to that in a sec, but Kish, what do you think the most important thing is on Sunday? Because I tweeted last night saying I think the main thing on Sunday is I want a performance that we can get behind, everyone aligned, pulling together in the same direction. Players showing that they've got the fight to get out of this under a new manager, but there is a huge opportunity with Arsenal being leggy and clearly fragile. You kind of touched on it in terms of like uncharacteristically conceding goals that this Arsenal team haven't really done. I think there was no more evidence of that really than last night. I saw a video from an Arsenal fan, I think it was Alex Moneypenny, where he was talking about the fact that Arsenal have actually conceded more goals than anybody with like less than 0.05 XG or something like that. So they've conceded a lot of goals from maybe outside the box, where you can maybe potentially look at Raya a little bit with how deep they sit as well, inviting kind of shots on as well. So maybe not so much there, but the kind of lack of communication in that back line between Raya and Gabriel, especially for that second goal last night, is something that you wouldn't typically associate with this Arsenal team. Not necessarily, well, maybe more at the crunch point, potentially, because I think they have had a bit of a habit of that when the pressure really comes, but not so much in the early phases of the season where it looks like everything's going well. So, one, how do you kind of feel about that? And also, how do you feel about what is the most important thing for you on Sunday? Obviously, we need results to get out of this mess, but if we were to lose, for example, and you don't want to start on that kind of negative front, would you be satisfied going away from that game if we see something that the players have kind of got the buy-in and it looks like we're moving in the right direction? Or are you just like, I don't care how we play, let's just win? I mean, obviously, yes, but could you come away with a good feeling even if we were to get a negative result, do you think?
So I think the first point around like we've seen it at Spurs under Frank is like if you crowd your own penalty area, this is where XG gets a bit cloudy and where I don't think it's that useful, is because if you crowd your own penalty area and you do sit deep, and Arsenal don't sit deep for the majority of games, but you know, towards the end of games at times they sit in a very compact low block, and they're able to deal with anything that comes into the box. But I think the whole thing about that is it causes a bit of chaos. It's even that game yesterday where, you know, it's quite a simple ball to deal with, but because it's so crowded in there, these mistakes happen. And I think often like the solidity is there, but it's about picking up the second balls on the edge of the box and those kind of things. So you still at times have to deliver into a low block. Like you have to test that back line, because those are where the mistakes happen. And just because they clear it the first time doesn't mean that you can't then pick up the ball on the edge of the box. And I think the likes of Gallagher, Xavi Simons can eat off that for sure. Which is why like we'll speak tactically down the line, but I kind of see, or I kind of predicted that maybe he plays it more as a front two with Solanke and Moani and maybe Simmons more into the three, because you kind of occupy both centre backs and you really lean into that playing direct or with two strikers and causing a bit of chaos. I mean, if you have like a really narrow, compact bunch of players who are willing to run and make runs into the box, then you cause a bit of chaos to a quite nervous team at the moment. In terms of like the most important thing for me is I want us to lay a glove. Like I don't want to see. I really want him to see this as a bit of a free hit, and I think it is a free hit. Like I know it's the North London derby, but we're not expected to win, regardless of whatever the mood is right now. There's no expectation to win. We know what happened last time. We didn't lay a glove on them. We scored from the halfway line, but we barely. I can't remember us creating a chance or anything. We were totally out of that game from minute one. So I think the bar is so low. Get behind, like don't concede early. Make it a game, make it competitive, and show intent. And like we don't have to play really intricately or anything like that. And I don't expect us to do that much under Tudor anyway, but because it's the first game, there isn't many patterns of play probably in the team. I also think obviously we're a depleted squad, so just I think simplify the game and put the ball on them and let the atmosphere carry. So yeah, I want us to play aggressive and believe in what we're doing. So don't half it. Like if you're going to be aggressive, you have to really back it. And fine, like I don't want us to do this, but if he wants to play a low block and counter, then really commit to it. When you are on the counter, really commit bodies forward. Just whatever you do, like believe in it fully. Don't be caught in this sort of half mode where we don't really look like anything. That's what I'd say.
Seb, do you think Igor Tudor's had enough? Bear in mind the players were kind of given 5 days off after Thomas Frank was sacked, and Igor Tudor kind of started from Monday. Really, obviously we'll have 5 to 6 days on the training ground, kind of getting into these players. Do you think he's had enough time to kind of get the players to kind of fully commit and believe into what he wants to do in the way that kind of Kish has said?
Yeah, I think so. I think in terms of a buy-in for Sunday at least, like I don't think the players shouldn't really need much going into a North London derby. Like no matter what the situation or the manager, obviously it was dark under Frank, and they're going to naturally be more up for the game because of that situation. I think a lot of the players probably were quite happy Frank was sacked. To be completely,
how many players was it? Was it 2 players that posted like a thank you thing on Instagram after he was sacked?
Who was it?
I think it was Paulinho and Porro.
Yeah. I mean, you could see even the stuff like Van de Ven and Spence storming down the tunnel way back when, was it the Chelsea game, I think that was, or something?
Yeah.
At home, and it's like, even stuff like that kind of showed. We didn't really want to highlight it too much at the time because you don't know the full context, but I think that stuff shows really how the players felt in terms of how much they respected Frank and really believed in what he was doing. And I just think that Igor Tudor will have got, he'll have gone into training this week and he'd have probably gone. I don't think he's a manager that's, too incredible tactically anyway, has huge ideas that he needs to get across. I think that it is more like you've seen from his other tenures when he's come in, he's got that immediate buy-in and got immediate results. Then it can kind of tend to go wrong later down the line when the focus shifts to more being, okay, well, actually, are we as a side? I think that he'll have just got that immediate buy-in this week. I think hopefully he'll have got sort of put an arm around a lot of the players and gone, look, this is our situation right now. This is what we need to do to get out of it. Huge game on Sunday. Shouldn't need to get you up for it. But yeah, just having a bit more of a positive feeling, I think. And the vibes look good from some of the training videos that I saw. So hopefully players just go into it with a little bit more confidence, belief. And like you say, maybe Frank, who was so sort of rigid in what he wanted to do tactically and like maybe over information and really limiting players at times, maybe just taking the shackles off a little bit, not having anything too amazing that we're doing on Sunday, but allowing someone like Simmons to be free could really, really benefit his game. We could see a lot more of a confident version of Xavi Simmons, for example. And I think it'll just be nice to see the players with the shackles off a bit, hopefully.
I think Xavi's going to have a bit of a point to prove in this game as well, after being benched for the North London derby in that run where Frank, I think, benched him for 4 or 5 games in a row, didn't he? Around that,
he's just done an interview as well, hasn't he? Like a big interview talking about.
I saw that. I saw that, and I think obviously what you've kind of just said there is reflected in Tudor's quotes in the interview the other day, where he said the style is more important than the system, and I think that's good. I think if you can kind of get those fundamental ideas across of what you want to do in terms of philosophy, I think not be necessarily wedded to kind of one way of playing. And I think obviously if you look at Igor Tudor's career, he's played 55 games in the 3-4-2-1, 3 games in a 3-4-3, 3 games in a 3-5-2. So it's very much the 3-4-2-1 with the 2 10s is kind of the way he's gone. But Kolo Muani was a player that was kind of used almost as a number 10 a little bit by Tudor at Juve, just playing off Vlahovic. So I think that naturally becomes a little bit, despite the fact that on paper, yes, he's kind of mainly gone with a 3-4-2-1 throughout his career. But as I said at the start of the video, his first game at Lazio, he played in a 4-4-2. So he has got that ability to adapt. But also the formation that you might see there on the screen or you might see on the pitch on Sunday isn't necessarily how it's going to be throughout the game, especially with the profiles that we've got. And I think it will be Solanke and Muani. So kind of touching more on the tactical side then. We've all watched Arsenal a lot this season. As they're on TV every week, and we love to hate watch and hope they bottle it. We all watched them on kind of Wednesday night early this week. There is a bit of a weakness and a fragility to them at the moment. I think they look leggy. I think they look tired. As we said, they're kind of making uncharacteristic mistakes. I think influences of key players who have been brilliant for him throughout the season, I think, is starting to dwindle a little bit on this team. I think Zubimendi is a good example of that. I don't think you're seeing him play anywhere near as well. And I think when Spurs have kind of got the legs of the likes of Sarr and Gallagher in midfield, if it is those two who will be instructed to probably press from the front and make it difficult for Arsenal to kind of play out, I think Arsenal have actually not really shown the best way of dealing with that situation. If you get in their faces, they kind of struggle to build through the thirds I think a lot, even though Zubimendi is such an excellent kind of progressive passer and calm under pressure, I think the amount of minutes that have kind of gone into his legs and Rice's legs as well, even though Rice is a player that always does step up for them and has probably been consistently their best player throughout the season. Even the likes of Timber, I think you saw that with him
He was really poor.
on Wednesday night. He was really poor. Kind of went down with a bit of an injury in the first half and then kind of played through it. Didn't look 100%. Obviously, one thing that we kind of have to factor in as well from an Arsenal perspective is this new position for Bukayo Saka and how Spurs kind of deal with that. You saw him from that central position make that kind of late run into the box to get him behind and score that goal. Kish, how would you? What are the kind of weak areas maybe of this Arsenal team that you think Spurs could potentially exploit? Is it using the legs of Sarr and Gallagher to really get in the face of Zubimendi and stop him dictating the tempo of the game? Because, like you said, I wouldn't mind us sitting in a low block and kind of countering as long as you have full commitment to do that. And I think with the players that we have got available, apparently Porro is back. Apparently Richarlison will be back as well as an option off the bench, which I think could be good for us late on, say, if we are losing the game, because I think he comes on and understands the feeling of the game in terms of maybe being able to come on and change it. Get in the faces of Saliba and Gabriel as well. Like you said, if we are to play kind of a two-striker system with the ability that he's got to put himself about, what are the areas of the pitch for Arsenal that you're kind of looking to target to try and stop them on Sunday?
I think the first point is like, it's a weird one because I think Arteta's actually rotated quite poorly because they have a pretty good squad. Like Ben White has barely had a look at, and I think Timber looks so legging. Timber for me
it was really strange not to play him last night.
Yeah, Timber's like one of the best fullbacks in the league, but last month or so, I think he's looked really, really poor. Zubimendi, I think, looks like he needs a rest as well, like you said, and I also think like Zubimendi is a better player than what is being allowed for him. I think he's a more progressive passer than I think Arteta allows, and this is kind of Arsenal all over. I think they really want to control every facet of the game. And so letting them be settled in possession and dictating the rhythm of the game is where they kind of minimize anything from the opposition. And I think that is the key to not allow them to start basically doing exactly what they want to do. I think the weaknesses... I think the weaknesses are in the front line as a player-wise. And that isn't something you like obviously can use offensively, but that for me is a difficult one because I think Arsenal's forwards are best in transition. Like I think Martinelli is a better player when there's space to run into. I think Gyökeres is a better player when there's space to run into. Madueke pretty even either way, and I think Saka. I even think Saka's better in transition. I think Saka's obviously they're probably one of their best players, but. So that kind of creates this thing where this is probably the Thomas Frank versus Ange type thing where either you worry about their qualities or you go and kind of show your qualities. If you're worrying about their qualities, I think you sit in and you struggle, you make them struggle because their front line can't create when there isn't space. But I think the mood around both teams, I think you have to go and be aggressive in this game. So the concerns for me are like the Martinelli running in behind. Gyökeres like doesn't scare me as much, but I do think Tudor's system, you leave that central centre back quite exposed at times. His best kind of attributes are running into space, but I also think with a centre back that can match him physically, he isn't that amazing. I think Dragusin is someone that could potentially match him.
Yeah,
but I think the weakness for me right now is just the feeling around the club. I don't think they necessarily have like a real tactical weakness apart from the fact I don't think they create much in open play. But I think apart from that, I think they're a pretty complete side. But the mood around them, I think we try and be really direct and make them nervous, basically. Make them not able to stamp their footprint on the game because, like I said, if Arsenal have 15 minutes at the start of the game where we don't really get the ball and they just pop it around, they'll settle into the game and they'll get into their rhythm. And then the crowd goes a bit more quiet. So I think the most important thing is from the off, making it a tough game and not allowing them to play in their rhythm because I think they always want to do that. Even when they're pressed high, they'll often drop players back into the build-up because they want to always have the overload and build-up. They want to be able to patiently get out of the first phase and don't allow them to do that, basically. So just go man to man and be really, really aggressive.
I think that's a good point because obviously one thing we've learnt with Tudor in terms of his pressing is that it's almost the wing backs a lot of the time that kind of trigger the press. They kind of get high up to the fullbacks or to even the centre backs at times to try and stop them from playing out, which then obviously does leave you vulnerable if you play a three at the back system to those runners in behind if they look to clip the ball over the top, which we did see as a bit of a flaw in some of Tudor's kind of play, maybe leaving that space in the middle. And if you get Saka in those kind of central areas in that little box in the midfield where he's able to turn and run, or it's Madueke coming central, I think we saw a bit of rotation between those two last night. And obviously Van de Ven on the left-hand side, you're not as worried about that. But without Romero and without Danso being able to kind of have that safety blanket there on the other side of the pitch, then that is a bit of a worry.
Quick question on that though, like if Porro is back,
yeah,
I saw there's someone commented this on my last video, and I was considering it as well. I think like Jed Spence at right centre back, if you are going to play super, and I know like I think he sometimes struggles positionally, but in terms of defending space and 1v1s and defending wide channels, that is a definite option because it's not like Palhinha is, a natural right centre back anyway. So I wouldn't be totally surprised by that, and that really allows you to be aggressive. It allows both those wide centre backs to be key in the kind of progressing the ball setup, but I also think it really protects you. I would be surprised if Porro is chucked straight in, but if Porro is fit to go, I'd probably rather see that because of Martinelli. The only thing that worries me about him is him running into space. I don't think he's great against, but Spence is someone that can easily match that. So that's another option. But I agree. I think it probably will be Palhinha.
I think he might not do that just because of Sousa on the other side.
I was just going to say this. If he's got Porro and Spence available, I very much doubt he uses them on the same flank. But I think it's a good idea moving forward.
I think Saka will play on the right on Sunday. I don't think he'll play in the 10 again. I think
I was looking at who would play on the. Would it be like
Odegaard might be back. He wasn't even on the bench last night. So is he going to be chucked straight in with the kind of problems that he's had coming in and out of the team?
Probably Eze because it's Spurs, isn't it? It'll probably be Eze and he'll score a bloody hat-trick again. But
I'll bring Eze in, man. Bring Eze.
So we were talking today and Rory said Odegaard. Basically said Odegaard in the 10 on Sunday. Okay. So I presume it will be him, and I think Saka will be back out. No, I wouldn't be surprised they play Madueke on the left on Sunday. I still think that's their best front three: Madueke on the left, Saka on the right, and then Gyökeres through the middle. Obviously, Havertz not available, which is a bonus for Spurs because Havertz has been good since he came back. He then obviously got injured again. But
is Jesus available?
Jesus available, he was.
Unless he gets some sort of retrospective ban for the.
Surely not.
Surely not.
I just think that I would be concerned, despite the fact I really liked what I saw from Sousa at Old Trafford, and I just love that left-footed option over there. I'd be really concerned about him against Bukayo Saka just because of how clever Saka is. And I think if Arteta saw that, I think that there would be a real target there in terms of get him on an early yellow with how clever Saka is at buying fouls, using his body. And Sousa kind of as a young player, 19 years old, coming into your first ever start potentially in a North London derby. If you get caught up in the atmosphere, we've seen it so many times before with players, like that could be a potential worry for me. And I would, even though I don't like it, I'd feel more comfortable with Jed Spence over on the left-hand side, just purely for dealing with Bukayo Saka because he's done that so well before, and then potentially Porro being at right back. I also think that, I said this a couple of weeks ago, I don't think he will do it right, but like he loved playing McKennie at right wing-back for Juventus, who's sort of a central midfielder by trade. Low-key Conor Gallagher at right wing-back, I think would actually be all right. Like,
I think he'd rather do Sarr there. Do you know what
maybe so.
To be fair, I think both of them have the qualities and fixtures in their game to be able to do that.
Similar to McKennie.
Also, I think to kind of touch back on the Porro and Spence thing, which brings Sarr and Gallagher into the conversation a little bit as well, with the rotations that I keep going to call him Igor Thiago, because he's got him on the plane. That Tudor likes to do in the kind of front line with the centre back sometimes taking up the central positions, driving out, but also taking up wide positions, allowing the wing backs to then come inside. I think with Porro and Spence, with the fact that Porro played the inverted role under Ange, kind of played in those pockets a lot of the time, and then getting him to rotate with Spence, where Spence can go and attack the space, or if you've got them kind of moving about, Porro can then go and attack the space on the right-hand side and get crosses in because he likes to overload the flanks. And with the fact that you've probably got a striker as one of those two number 10s in Mawani, getting bodies into the box as well is going to be something that Tudor really kind of wants to do. I think I'm with you, Seb, in the sense that I would feel probably a lot more secure in this game with Spence over here and Van de Ven, and then maybe he will chuck Porro back in straight from the start. I think Byfield is also maybe something to consider as well with his athleticism. I don't think he will, but I just think with the traits that we've kind of seen him have in the playing at youth level and also in the coming on in the Premier League and in the Champions League for us as well. He's got good recovery pace. He's physical as well, and I think he'll be bang up for this as well. We kind of saw with
I think regardless, like going forward, he has to be used because we're lacking in numbers, but also his flex, he can play across the back three. He can play the central, the left, and the right. So that is a player that we have to, I think, lean on. And maybe it's not in this game, but I really think that the more minutes he gets, the more confidence he gets. I think he's probably the best option, barring obviously Van der Ven and Romero and Danso's out. I think we won't maybe see it initially, but I think that's a key point. The other thing I was quickly going to say is like the Saka on the right scares me a lot more than Saka in the 10, because
same 100%.
The most aggressive, like the way we're going so aggressive with this, you're obviously leaving Van der Ven 1v1 a lot with Saka. And while Van der Ven's great at defending the space, if Saka gets there first and he's isolated Van der Ven, that's when I think Van der Ven struggles. We've seen him when he gets twisted, like because he's such a big guy. He can get twisted in terms of the way that the quickness of the opponent's turn. And we've seen that before. Van der Ven's great at cleaning space, but once the opposition player actually has the ball at their feet under control, then I think he can struggle. And that scares me. And I can picture. I can
see it in my head,
You can see another like a situation like a Jaden.
There was one White Hart Lane game where I think we were 3-0 down at half time.
It was Ben Davis, wasn't it? It was they played the long ball over the top and Saka just got 1v1.
That's what I'm picturing in my head.
I think you're right. I think as well, if Saka was to play centrally, I think with the midfield profiles that we've got, I actually think we could stop him quite well. Because if you play Paulinho in there,
I don't think he's great in the 10. Like, I think against Wolves, I thought he was really isolated. He just didn't. I don't think he's like nimble enough to play in the 10.
I think that also, if he was to play there, I think one of the facets, one of the things that he does bring that can hurt certain teams. Certainly, I mean, a Wigan, like regardless of quality of opposition. But like if they were,
they're not far off us.
Well, that's true. But Wigan were also quite open, and I think what they were allowing too much Saka to kind of make the runs in the channels. So Madueke always had like an option, which is something that Odegaard obviously never does, where Odegaard likes to sit on the edge of the box, receive it, Saka will run into that space, which I think is Van der Ven's kind of bread and butter. Like Van der Ven can deal with that really, really well. I wanted to touch on the midfield quickly, because obviously one of the things that we saw, and Kish, you would have spoken about it, I spoke about it in our How Igor Tudor Sets Up at Spurs videos, based on what we've kind of learned, is that obviously with Locatelli often dropped into that back line to help with build-up for Juventus. Locatelli is one of the best at it in the world. How do you kind of see that midfield pivot shaping up? And do you think Yves Bissouma, under a new manager, I know he's only got 3-4 months left on his Spurs deal and he might potentially just be a bit checked out, and I think the fans aren't really aren't with him at the moment, because I thought that performance against Newcastle was pretty shameful. I thought Sarr was really pretty decent in that game. I just think he just kind of let him pass it by. But in terms of profile, I think he's probably the best at being able to do that. So what do you think that pivot looks like on Sunday? Because again, Arsenal they're gonna press high themselves. They're gonna kind of want to pin us in. They'll identify Dragusin, who will have to play as a weakness on the ball. He is a big weakness on the ball for us, especially without Romero. So how do you kind of see that? Because I feel like obviously he will like Sarr, he will like Gallagher because of the principles in terms of how he wants to play. But how do you sort of see that kind of shaping up in midfield?
I think this game is a bit of a one-off in terms of the midfield. I would say because of how I think we should and will play, I don't think you need much. I don't think we're gonna play out from the back. I think we're gonna probably get it to the wide centre backs and then maybe clip it more direct. I think in future games that's going to be definitely a feature, and I think potentially Archie Gray could potentially play that. We're not blessed with that profile as we know. I think Archie Gray is probably the best there because he's pretty secure on the ball, he's pretty safe on the ball, but he can progress the ball forward as well. I think Bissouma I really like, but I think that role is actually quite important to be really secure and meticulous with how you play, because of if you see the amount of spaces that are kind of left in that setup, you are at risk of, if you turn the ball over there, it's big problems. And not that Bissouma Bissouma's great under pressure, but he can have lapses, and I think you kind of need safety in that role as well as progression. And I think Gray is quite a safe player while being able to progress the ball as well. I don't see this role for Sarr, but in this game, I don't think we're going to see much of that. So I think the athleticism of both Sarr and Gallagher, just to kind of back up second balls and cover ground, is going to be key. And I had this pretty much exactly the same lineup, but I saw it more as a midfield 3 and a front 2. With Simmons kind of dropping into either in the 10 or even just as the left centre midfielder. But yeah, I think I do think this is going to be the 11.
You think Suze is going to play?
Yeah, I don't see Porro coming straight in, but
neither do I. Yeah, I agree. I don't think you can risk him after such a layoff. Like he's been out for
I would almost rather save Porro a little bit for the end of it. Say if we are 1-0 down, 2-1 down, and Richarlison comes on, or you stick with Solanke and Mawani, who are 2 decent box threats as well, kind of themselves, having that ability to win up, because we know that Arsenal want to get bodies behind the ball, they want to overload their own box, and Porro's crossing ability, if he's afforded the sort of space that Bueno had to shoot the other night for Wolves, or you said, like, look at how Brentford caused Arsenal problems as well by, I know a lot of them were from dead ball situations or throw-ins or whatever, but again, you can get at Arsenal in that kind of way if you can get bodies into the box and balls into the box. So I think having Porro maybe as a weapon to come on. Do you think there's any way that maybe we see someone like Tell starting this game, or do you think it will be Xavi, Solanke and Mawani, definitely? Because that's what I'm leading towards. I think it will be those 3.
Yeah, I think it will be those 3. I think that Tell... I think Tudor might quite like Tell. Like, I think in a front 2, I think Tell could work really well. I just think he likes Mawani. Mawani was somebody that he relied upon at Juventus last season when they're in a tough situation. And I'd like to see Mawani play. I think that Mawani and Solanke partnership could work really well, but I think it will be a lot more comfortable for Tell kind of coming on into this system than it was under Frank, where he's coming out and kind of playing quite wide and quite close to the touchline. I think that will be a lot better for him if he's got the wing backs pushing up either side of him. And yeah, I think that'll be kind of nice. And look, if Mawani sort of plays this weekend, then maybe Tell gets a start next weekend. Obviously, when we go back to playing twice a week, I think that Tell will get quite a lot of minutes in that front too. And so I think that could definitely be an option. And off the bench, I love that.
I think we got to also remember that like this game, of course, is a huge game, but it's not a game that you necessarily expect to get 3 points. It's not a game that is potentially the ones that we have to win to stay up. So I do think like the likes of risking Porro, of course, we want Porro to play in this game, but there's a lot of big games coming up and games that we have 100%. To have. This isn't a game we have to win. Yeah. Obviously, we all want to win. Yeah. But like, the Fulham, I think, is it Fulham the week after? Fulham
away, yeah. And then Palace.
That is a game that's more, in my eyes, like more important to the way the results that we need. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because a lot of those home games coming up between now and the end of the season are basically all against teams that are in and around us.
And exactly, those are the games I think Porro is more important because of his crossing ability and stuff like this. Whereas this, I think we just try and turn it into a bit of a scrap, like turn it into a bit of a transitional
I think
scrap.
The 100%, I do agree. And I think the key thing, and something we've seen go so badly under Frank, is kind of what you were saying earlier. If Spurs want to kind of bait Arsenal into coming on to us, recycle the ball around the back, and it goes to one of those wide centre-backs and they clip it long, as I kind of illustrated there, we need to make sure that Solanke and Mawani aren't isolated. Like that was, in the City game, it was absolutely dreadful. In the Newcastle game as well, obviously Mawani didn't start, but it was Odobert and who started on the left-hand side in that game?
It was Odobert on the left. And then on the right, it was...
No, Xavi on the left, Odobert on the right, and then Mawani came on, didn't he? I can't remember, but anyway.
It was a midfield 3, and then those 3 up top.
But those games, I remember...
It was Kudus and Odobert, yeah.
No, Kudus was in.
No, the Newcastle game.
Oh, I think it's about Arsenal, sorry. Yeah.
No, sorry, Newcastle, like a few weeks ago, what I was going to say was, like, against Newcastle and against Man City in that first half, which changed in the second half when we still were kind of going direct, but the amount of times that Solanke would try and bring the ball down with 2 centre-halves kind of alongside him, and no one was supporting him whatsoever. He would just kick it long and hope for the best. And Gallagher playing in that game, Sarr playing in the Newcastle game, neither of them were getting anywhere near close enough. I know Sarr's role, I think, in that game was a bit different, where I think he was kind of helping us try and dictate the tempo a little bit in midfield, even though we weren't able to do that. Solanke was just so isolated, and Solanke and Mawani were both really isolated in the City game. So I think you're right. I don't think we'll necessarily try and play out from the back. I think we get it to the wide centre-backs, clip it down into the channel, and then feed off the scraps, which, again, in a game like this, I'm absolutely kind of fine with, but we just need to make sure, as you said at the start, Kish, that we fully commit to that, because we've got legs in there. And again, if we lose the ball, you've got then the legs high up the pitch. You've got those dogs in Gallagher and Sarr with that kind of safety blanket behind them, with whether it's Gray or Paulinho. As I said, I think it will be Paulinho. I think he will lean on Paulinho's leadership quality and his character in especially in a game like this. And then it will definitely be Dragusin and Van de Ven. We've just got to make sure that we fully commit to it and get bodies close to them that can then counter press if we lose the ball, but also then hopefully make something happen if we do win the knockdown.
Yeah, I think we'll see, like the second half of games recently when we've been so feeble and poor in first halves. In the second half, we really just seem to go up and level in terms of intensity and almost like player freedom. I think you might see a bit more of the sort of characteristics of our recent second half performances just throughout the 90 under Tudor, especially maybe in the first half. I think that will be really, because we've shown that we can do it, and I think Tudor will kind of just empower us to do that from the start. And it might work, it might not. We're playing the best team in the league, so look, they could pick us off. But I'm with you. I think like just being intense and being aggressive and proactive is so important on Sunday to get the crowd into play early, properly, and really suffocate Arsenal. So we don't think there's any chance of a back four then.
No, I think there is. I think there could.
I think there's definitely a chance.
I like the midfield dynamic more with a four. I'd like Gallagher and Sarr pushing on a little bit more, maybe having a little bit more freedom in a four.
That's why I said that potentially Bissouma could play, or Gray, and you play Sarr and Gallagher. And this is a one-off game where maybe Xavi doesn't start, but I don't know. But that I can imagine him doing that and going full out in terms of second balls and all that kind of thing.
It could be a diamond potentially if he does do that with Bissouma at the base of it, Gallagher and Sarr as the two boxes, and then Simmons in the 10 behind the strike. Because again, you can kind of adapt that into a three at the back system.
I'd like that.
Anyway, so if it was meant to say maybe it might be Paulinho at the base of it instead of Bissouma, then you can go into a three. It allows you the kind of freedom to be able to do that. Paulinho tucks then in at right centre back, and then you just have Sarr, Gallagher, and Xavi, which I think again is. I just think those legs are going to be so important, because I think we just need to try and run all over them. And it's we've got a good video out of this and a good conversation. It is difficult to preview it from a tactical perspective under a new manager. We think we know how he plays, but for this one-off game, it could be different. Like I said, he's very rarely moved away from the three at the back, but in his first game for Lazio against Juventus back in 2024, he did do that. So again, with the injuries that we've got, with the fact that it's not the profiles that we've got aren't perfect for his system right now, we could definitely see that. And that's why I think it's really important to kind of touch on the intangibles and the feelings around this game as much as it is the tactical kind of stuff. So finally then, how do you guys feel giving me a score prediction? And who do you think is going to thrive in this game for Spurs?
2-1
Spurs. You think we're going to beat?
I've just got a feeling, mate. It's going to go badly wrong. I predicted us to win 2-1 on the back post earlier, so I'm going 2-1 again. And I think
they're going to be nervous, aren't they? They are going to be really, really nervous.
I'm going to go 2-2. I think it's going to be more open than most North London derbies. Well, actually, North London derbies are normally score draws, but or score losses.
I was thinking 2-2. I think was what was in my head. I don't want to predict us to lose. There was obviously every chance that does happen.
Yeah, we're still favourites to lose, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think it could almost be, hopefully not in terms of performance, but almost a bit like the City game where we do really go at them. Maybe they get a goal because of the space we kind of leave, and they maybe might get one from a set piece. But I think we'll come back. I think we'll definitely score. I think we'll come back into the game.
That shite Wolves team got a result against them. I want a result against them too. We're better than that Wolves team, and I think that they will flap it in that atmosphere, and we're going to do them.
If Wolves can do it
first, lads.
If Wolves can do it, why can't we? Right, nice one. Thank you, lads. I appreciate it.
Aim high, lads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If Wolves can do it, why can't the mighty Tottenham Hotspur? But I feel good. I do feel good. I think they will be nervous. They're tired. They're leggy. We haven't played since the Newcastle game. They've played twice since then in games away from home as well, against teams that have taken them the distance and really given them a physical battle that have taken a lot out of that team. So I think it's a real opportunity for Spurs to do something here on Sunday. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure to go and subscribe to Seb. Go and subscribe to Kish, Lily White Lab as well. And I will see you maybe in another video before the North London derby. If not, I will see you after on Sunday.